is the book more inclusive than other books on puberty?
Okay, do you want me to start with this and then you can add on, or?
Sounds great.
Okay. So we wrote this book to include every kid out there. We have puberty that is all about females that are assigned at birth, males that are assigned at birth, because we know that's already difficult for kids to learn about each other, the opposite sex. And then we also added all about gender diverse kids. So it truly is, we hope that every kid out there can see themselves represented in this book.
Yeah, and not only does this book include, all kids regardless of gender, it also has some characters in the book that is inclusive in other ways, such as there's a character who's in a wheelchair. We have characters with different racial and ethnic backgrounds, talks about a child with Down syndrome. So we try to be really all inclusive of all kids. So every kid can see somebody in this book that they can relate to.
Absolutely. I know this is in the description for the book, but it resonated so much with me is, back in the day, and I'm not sure if this is still the case, but it sounds like it may be in a lot of schools where essentially you split everybody up, the boys go in one room, the girls go in another room. And we only learned about what happened to, assigned girl bodies growing up. And then we were all curious, what was in the bag that the boys were getting and what were the boys learning about? And it seems silly to not educate all children about all bodies. So this seems like an absolutely stupendous resource. And we've got another question that just came through. This is a good one. What is the right age to start conversations about puberty or offer puberty resources?
The earlier you start, the better. Everybody goes through puberty. It's just the way our bodies, it happens. So if you can start as early as naming proper body parts when they're toddlers and making sure they know those names, they learn eyes, ears, nose, mouth. Why can't they learn vulva? All those correct anatomical terms. It's just really, really important. And then what we've learned is that if you actually teach the kids about the changes before they happen, they're actually really excited about it because they don't have that negative connotation of what other people think about changing bodies. And they're actually pretty excited about it. But if you have a 12-year-old and you're sitting right there thinking, oh my gosh, I haven't started this conversation, just know it's never too late. But the earlier you can start having conversations, the better. Because we know girls go through puberty anywhere between the ages of 8 and 12, and boys are 9 to 14. So you at least want to start that conversation before those ages.
Yeah, it's would be a very difficult thing to get caught by surprise about. So absolutely, the sooner the better.
But the majority of kids are caught off guard. That's the sad part. And if you can teach them what's ahead, they face it with more confidence and less anxiety. And that's what we really want to do is, if a girl starts her period or gets a breast bud, I had a girl that came in my office, thought she had breast cancer because she had a breast bud because nobody talked to her about it. And so they do get very anxious, pimples, body odor, all these things that happen. If they just know that that's normal, and we as parents and caregivers normalize normal, it just takes the anxiety out and just makes it much easier for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So much less startling and uncomfortable and awkward if you already kind of know what's coming. Absolutely. The next question we've got is, why is it important to have all kids learn about all kids in regards to puberty?
Yeah, this is, I think, a real unique part of this book also. We touched on it a bit earlier here today, but in this book, we want all kids to learn about periods and breast development. We want all kids to learn about erections and ejaculation, in addition to body odor and emotional changes. So it's so important for all kids to learn about all of this, because if kids can understand each other and can understand what each other is going through in puberty, they're going to have more empathy for each other, more support for each other. We also know the more kids understand about other kids, the less bullying there is. And we all know that kids at this age are at high risk for bullying in schools. And that one of the major causes of that bullying is body stuff. So if everybody can understand everybody's bodies and changes, that can really decrease the bullying and increase the empathy. That being said, we also really wanted to make sure all kids understand about puberty for gender diverse kids, because sometimes that can look different than for other kids. And if all kids can understand about that, there's just more empathy and acceptance that goes all around for everyone.
Yeah, I have to say, I do recall some of the taunts and rhymes that were made up by children, and definitely body odor is one I think that catches. It's like, you see it in cartoons even, that or older cartoons. Hopefully it's not as prevalent in currently created cartoons. But yeah, it's very difficult. So it's such a great way to be able to head off bullying at an earlier age. A terrific resource.
Yeah, one other point on that question also is we also know that if all kids learn about puberty together and can understand each other's bodies a bit better, that also really sets the stage for future intimate relationships. And it sets the stage for kids as they're growing up to be able to communicate in a healthy way about their private bodies in intimate relationships. It just helps set the stage for healthier relationships all around.
Absolutely. Definitely. If you understand how to talk about your body too, that future conversation with partners and with partners is probably going to be a lot easier. And I think that kind of is a good segue into our next question, which is, why is it important to educate both boys and girls on periods and erections?
I think these questions are all alike. Right? I mean, I think we just said, I think the more we know about each other, the less teasing there is, the more we understand, the more respect, the more empathy, the more supportive we are. So I think that we need to know what's going on for both. And the other is, if you separate and we don't know what's going on in this other room, well, kids have these things and they have computers. And so they're going to Google girls' bodies, boys' bodies, or things like that. And that's really dangerous. And so we want to make sure that we educate them so they don't feel curiosity is normal, right? And we get that, but we also want to try to make sure that we teach them what they need to know in a healthy and safe manner so they don't go, and because we know what they're going to find. They're going to find pornography, which is just devastating for kids. And so we don't want them to do that. So it's really important that we just talk about it all.
Yeah, absolutely. As someone who I'm a new parent, so I spend a lot of time Googling, and it is just anxiety inducing and the opposite of what it sounds like this is going to be able to be for kids. You touched on gender diversity a bit earlier, and I think that's really a hot topic right now, that a lot of educators and librarians and parents are struggling to know exactly how to approach. So one of the questions that's just come through is, how can we support kids who are gender diverse and feeling upset about their puberty changes?
Yeah, I think for kids who are gender diverse and feel like their body is changing in ways that doesn't feel right for them, I think the best thing we can do is, first of all, just listen to them and realize what they're experiencing is real for them. I think it's important to help those kids get help with that, whether that's talking with a trusted adult like a teacher or a librarian, or helping those kids find a pediatrician or healthcare provider who is knowledgeable about that to help them navigate that, because there's wonderful things that we can do to help those kids feel better about their bodies and feel better about the changes that are going on. So those kids need to feel affirmed in what they're experiencing, and they need to find trusted adults who can help them navigate that.
Sorry, I was muted there for a second. Absolutely. I think this will be a terrific resource to help not only kids understand what's going on, but also educators and parents and librarians understanding how, reading about gender diverse kids, they may not have had that experience yet. So I think this could definitely be a great tool for them as well to just learn about how to approach that topic. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think this book, for teachers or librarians to read this book can give those adults the language to talk about this with those kids who are maybe gender diverse and coming to them for help. So this can really also help adults know, because this is new for a lot of adults to learn about this and to learn how can we talk about this with these kids in a way that is affirming and isn't hurtful. So for those adults to pick up this book and just see the language we use in this book, and then they can use that language when they're talking with all kids. So it can really help the adults feel more comfortable on that topic too.
Yeah.
And we know that gender topics seem to be a trigger word these days. And I know that this book, some people aren't going to feel comfortable reading because we do talk about gender. And I know many parents struggle with terms, just like Katie said, and librarians, teachers, their kids are using terms they don't know. And so we really wrote this book not to gain big media attention right now around gender discussions with kids or to challenge parents, but we really wrote it as a resource for all kids and parents to learn and navigate the changes involved with puberty. We know that all kids are curious, and after reading this book, they will be better prepared for their own puberty and their friends if they just learn about each other.
Yeah, I think that's such a terrific point. Not only the empathy, but giving everyone the vocabulary. It is a learning curve, and it's delightfully the times are changing to welcome space for the vocabulary. And I think that is where one of the awkwardness comes from, is when people are embarrassed and they're not sure exactly how to talk about a topic. And so then they either don't talk about it, or they just kind of, get into that defensive stance of, well, I don't want to have to learn new words. But if they are armed with a tool that educates them about the right words, I think that's a terrific place to start. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say on that note, talking about how there's a lot of maybe new vocabulary out there in regards to gender diversity. And though that is true, I also really like to help adults realize we all don't need to know all these many new words. We don't all need to know what they each mean. What we as adults need to be able to do to support these kids is we just need to be able to listen to these kids. And we just need to be able to talk to these kids in a way that just acknowledges that their experience is their experience. And though in this book, we do, define some vocabulary words, overall, I think what is really helpful in this book is we use just general language that we all know as a way to talk to kids, all kids going through puberty. So for example, in this book, a lot of the time we say most girls start their periods at this age, and some other kids also get their periods around this age. So just also, I don't want people to worry that they have to learn all these new words and the definitions of them. Really, we just need to listen to kids and know how we can affirm their experiences. And understanding some new words is great and helpful also, but I don't want that part to be overwhelming or a barrier for adults.
Yeah, I can absolutely confirm the book is extremely approachable. All the chapter titles are really fun. And like you said, the audience is intended first and foremost to be children. So it's very, very approachable, I would say. Back a little bit to the controversy that you touched on, Trish. Do you think some states might try to ban this book? And if so, what do you think about that?
I'm sure they will. I think they're banning other puberty books. For some reason, some states feel that their kids can't be educated outside of the home, that their parents should do it, which is absolutely fine. We want parents to do the educating. But we also believe that repetition is pretty important too at this age group. So wherever kids learn from it. But our book is medically accurate. So it's a little frustrating that people would ban it because it's just medically accurate information. And what we would love is for the parents to read this book with their kids. And, parents can talk about their beliefs and values within their home, but the kids getting educated with all this information. We don't have any politics in this book. We just want every kid to feel represented in this book.
Yeah, it's data-driven, fact-driven information. Yeah. And I think it being published by the American Academy of Pediatrics and all of you being physicians definitely lends that much more credibility. And I'm very hopeful that it doesn't get banned because I do think it'll be a tremendous resource for kids and parents alike.
Mhm.
On that note, a little bit, as we're talking about parents, myself eventually going to have a child going through puberty, how will I know if my kids have started puberty?
You know, one of the first signs of puberty that parents don't think about is the hands and the feet start growing first. And so if your kid actually says their tennis shoes are too small, believe them if they're in that age range, because that's the first growth spurt that happens. And actually research shows it is a sign that other changes are going to happen. Some folks get breast buds at the beginning of puberty, bless you. And some actually their testicles start to get bigger. So it's more noticeable in some kids than in others. If testicles are getting bigger, we probably have no idea. But things like body odor, acne, I talked about the height spurt, you know, all those things are signs of puberty, but some are more noticeable than others. That's for sure. And again, girls are 8 to 12, males 9 to 14 in that age group.
I didn't realize about hands and feet. That's too funny.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So like, parents are like, I just bought these tennis shoes 2 months ago. Well, there it goes.
Sorry, Mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that's a really good sign to watch out for. Or not watch out for, I should say, but
Right.
prepare for. And know when it's time to have a talk. Oh, here's a fun one. What if I accidentally walk in on my child watching pornography or masturbating?
Katie, you want me to take that?
Sure.
Okay. So my other company is called You-ology. We're a digital health platform for girls. And one of our biggest thing that we try to tell parents is that we have a button that says, don't freak out. And that's the number one thing. If you ever walk into a situation that blows your mind, if you freak out, then the kid's going to freak out and then it becomes an emotional mess. And the other is if you freak out, it also teaches the kids that you're not capable of handling what's going on in their life. So you really want to do your best. Now, let's say, did you say watching porn or masturbating, or did you say both?
Both.
Okay, so it's two different things, right? Kids are curious about their own selves, and masturbation is completely normal. So if you walk in on your kid masturbating, hopefully it's in their bathroom or their bedroom. It's not down in the den or a public place. If it is, then you just say that's a fine private activity. And we joke, we have a couple of rules that, it shouldn't take up all your free time. It's not proper dinner time conversation and is not a spectacular spectator sport. So if it's not happening around those realms, it's probably normal. Back away, let your kid know that what they're doing is normal and fine and private. Now, watching pornography is another story. That's if they're curious about other people. And the majority of kids land on pornography because of curious searches. They put a word in the search box and they're not really looking for pornography. They're looking for information about naked bodies or parts of bodies. And so if you do walk in on that, the best thing to do is to simply ask what they were looking for, tell them there are unsafe sites that they can be looking for this information. And then we have a download about 10 tips about talking about pornography with your kids, which is so important because they need to know pornography has nothing real about it. They're all actors. It is very demeaning, very violent, no consent, no body parts are normal. Everything's adjusted. And so there's so many conversations that need to happen. I think I just saw a study that 80% of teenage boys have seen pornography and over 60% of girls. And another study showed that 75% of parents said that their kids hadn't seen pornography, but actually 50% had seen pornography. So we can't stick our head in the sand. We have to start these conversations with our kids. And if you walk in on your kid looking at it, then that's a perfect time to start the conversation. But hopefully you can do it before then. But it's a tough one. The kids are curious. They're curious.
Yeah. And it's so important to have that a conversation around it and make sure the kids don't feel embarrassed about it. I think
Yes.
that's a really good tip to not overreact when you come upon that situation.
And I've messed up.
especially-
I've overreacted with my own kids. I did it. So I can sit there and tell you not to, but we all do it. And it's okay. Give yourself a little grace and apologize and move on. So
Yeah, it's gotta be hard. And especially like you said, pornography being so outrageous. And you worry about kids, you want them to be safe online. So that's definitely a concern, I think, for a lot of parents. This one a little bit less scary and maybe more of an awkward topic for parents, but how do you talk to kids about hygiene questions like acne and stink issues? I know personally, I remember the first like, kind of, you know, red flag of my own puberty was that my mom took me to Walgreens to pick out deodorant.
She
said,
smelled you, but you didn't smell
wear
yourself.
right. No,
I
I
think-
don't think I could. I think she was like, you need to start wearing this now. So how do you handle that conversation?
Kids don't always know they do smell, which is really sad. I mean, you walk into the hallways of a middle school and you're like, whew, it's feet and body odor, right? It's amazing. And they don't always smell it. And so the first thing you want to do is, again, don't yell at them and tell them they stink to go take a shower, or yell at them to tell them they need to take a shower twice a day. It's simply a, hey, you want to go check out some products, or hey, I've got this new soap, or it's just got to be a relaxed conversation. But the interesting part, if kids don't care about their hygiene, it's very difficult to force them to care about their hygiene. Does that make sense? So if they have greasy hair and they don't care they have greasy hair, it's very hard to make them wash their hair. But odor is a little bit different, that sometimes we need to push them. The other thing is you need to make sure they have soap in there, because during puberty, the apocrine glands start working. Kids are sweating from the day they're born, but they don't smell, right? So when puberty starts, these apocrine glands take over and they secrete oils and all this delicious stuff that their bacteria on their skin loves. So the bacteria eats the oils and they party and they cause this awful odor. And that's what it is. So they have to use soap to remove the oils and the bacteria. But it's just a light conversation that you need to have, and that it's just respectful of others, but don't yell at them. Don't make them feel bad. Don't, you know, disgrace them for smelling or anything like that, but they do smell.
Yeah, and I think another good tip for that is to, you know, again, kind of model it for them with ourselves. So if I have gone exercising, you know, I might come back and say to my kids like, oh, I think I probably smell, I'm going to go shower before we sit down together for dinner. So kind of modeling it. And with acne too, I think a lot of kids feel so self-conscious with acne, and might be hard for them to talk about it. So I think sometimes as parents, if we can share our history of acne, so I can say, oh, I remember when I had acne when I was a teenager and I felt really embarrassed about it. And then I got some help for it and felt better. So I think sharing our personal experiences always can be a little less threatening way to talk to kids about this stuff.
Yeah, and definitely a way to show some empathy too.
Mm-hmm.
I've been through there. I've been in those shoes. I know what you're going through. I think that's really smart. And to tie it all back to the book, I believe there's a pretty fun chapter that deals specifically with hygiene issues. How were you guys able to narrow down the topics that you wanted to cover in this guide to everybody?
A lot of the content came from Melissa Holmes she's a OBGYN adolescent gynecologist. And so she's my partner in Girl-ology. And a lot of the content came from, we had existing Girl-ology and Guy-ology books way before there was discussion about gender. And we were in the process of actually combining these books and using our content for that. And the AAP put the three of us with Dr. Lowe, thank goodness, she totally helped us on how to address every kid, to make it for every kid. And so the topics we covered were just, they need to know about anatomy, right? They need to know about private parts and why they're private. And I think our book is different because we do actually address why private parts are private. It's huge sexual abuse prevention if kids understand what their private parts are and proper names for their private parts. Then we wanted to make sure that we hit on all the changes that happen with puberty. I mean, it is from acne to body odor, to breast buds, to erections, to ejaculations. I mean, we just talk about it all. But we also wanted to hit in there some exercise, nutrition, just some wellness stuff. We rolled in some emotion stuff. I don't think we missed anything. And then we have, which I love, the chapter that you mentioned, is that curiosity is normal. And so we talked about kids being curious with themselves and with others, and safe places for parents to find or to help with that curiosity. And then one of the chapters that we had is when puberty doesn't feel right. And I think that is a different chapter that most puberty books don't have either. We talk about early and late puberty, and puberty, the changes that happen when someone doesn't feel really good about what's happening to their body. It's a lot. I don't know that, did we take anything out, Katie? I just think we kept going.
Yeah, I think we kind of covered it all. And I think it's also helpful the way it's divided up just into individual chapters. So you don't have to read it cover to cover. So if you are just trying to talk to your child about smelling and personal hygiene, you can just go over that one chapter with them or have them read it if they don't want to read it with you. So it's easy to jump around from topic to topic also.
And we
Yeah.
purposely put everybody's anatomy in one chapter. We purposely put everyone's breast and chest in a chapter, and, you know, puberty gear in a chapter. So there's no way that kids can separate, or it's just all there together in each chapter, anatomies together.
Yeah, I think that organization is so smart. Because I have to say, one of the things that I feel like I remember about going through puberty is that it felt very lonely. It felt like it was only happening to me. And I think that, I mean, I definitely watch a lot of like, you know, high school movies where it feels like, you know, everything's just happening to you. And I think that this book is really going to help kids not feel so alone in that experience. Is that something that you find common, that kids feel abnormal when everything that's happening to them is in fact normal?
Absolutely. I think, yeah, that is such another normal feeling that we want to try to normalize for all kids. And, you know, like you said, it's sometimes the kid going through puberty feeling like I'm the only one going through puberty. It's also the kid who isn't going through puberty feeling like I'm the only kid not going through puberty. You know, everyone during these years often just feels alone in their experiences. So yeah, that is another reason we try to just put all of these changes all together. So you cannot avoid reading that this is normal and everyone goes through this.
I think it's going to be a big help. And with that, we've only got about a minute or two left. Are there any closing thoughts you guys want to leave us with before we wrap up for today?
We appreciate librarians so much, and I hope that they'll read this themselves. And if they see someone that's in need of some good medically accurate puberty education, then I hope that they will recommend this book.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much for your time. I'll remind our audience that the DRC for You-ology is available on Edelweiss, and you can also reach out to our rep team, and we will get you a copy to review so that you can consider it for your own bookshelves and libraries. We really, really thank you again, both fantastic doctors, for this book and for spending time with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.